Thank you very much for having crossed the Atlantic to join our conference. We're very happy to have you. And a question which I would ask you is the following. It's about digitalization, and digitalization appears to have increased the attractiveness of vertical mergers in the media sector. In your opinion, what is the best way to balance the trade-off between the potential efficiencies of vertical mergers and the risk of foreclosure when analyzing this type of mergers?
Well, thank you, Jose, very much for inviting me and asking me this challenging question. First, it's true that consumers are increasingly dropping pay TV, trying to slim down their cable bills. Many consumers nowadays, they subscribe to broadband and then they'll add an online or over-the-top service like Netflix or Hulu. And so this has created a very severe competition threat to traditional MVPDs. The online services, and particularly Netflix recently, have also integrated vertically. Netflix has been spending a lot of money into developing and producing original content. And as a result, the traditional MVPDs, cable and satellite companies, have also started to vertically integrate. Now, there is a big difference between the way that the vertical integration is happening for the traditional MVPDs and the vertical integration of the online and over-the-top services like Netflix. For Netflix, is organic growth. They develop their own content productions, while the traditional MVPDs, they have integrated vertically through mergers and acquisitions. They buy existing media companies, and that's an important difference. Now, and I think that that's where the concerns for foreclosure come, since they're buying existing media companies that are also selling content to their competitors. That creates an incentive and an ability to raise the costs of rivals. So in terms of your questions, how to go about the trade-off between efficiencies and vertical foreclosure, my opinion is that vertical mergers between traditional MVPDs and media companies do raise significant foreclosure concerns. For the reason I just mentioned, they supply content to their rivals. And so that should be the starting point. Now, efficiencies exist and are present, but they may not be necessarily large enough to compensate for the risk of foreclosure. So the way that I would approach a vertical merger is to look at the efficiencies. If the efficiencies are small, and they can be small, for example, when the buyers, which are the traditional MVPDs, have significant bargaining leverage, then the prices of content are relatively low, and so the elimination of the double markup, which is the main efficiencies involved in vertical mergers, is not very present. So in cases like that, the foreclosure concern probably would dominate. And in other situations where maybe you can argue that the efficiencies are large because the content prices are very high, then an issue is whether the efficiencies perhaps could be achieved by contract instead of by merger, in which case you could obtain the efficiencies without the risk of foreclosure.